it's Ivy Slater, and you're listening to Her Success Story Podcast, a show where gutsy businesswomen share their success journey. Hi, it's Ivy Slater, and welcome back to another episode of Her Success Story. Right now, we're in the middle of a series all around nonprofits. For me, the holidays is always about giving and receiving, and I thought it'd be a really special time now to focus the holidays on a variety of different nonprofits, highlight some people we know in the various communities we're part of, and have an opportunity to share the message forward, learn the differences and what it's about to be part of a nonprofit and how nonprofits are truly businesses. So today I'm going to welcome Josh Kaye. He is the Executive Director of New York State's Best Buddies. For those of you who are familiar with Best Buddies, you're going to love this. For those of you who are new to the mission of Best Buddies, is Josh is going to share a little bit more about it. In the overall view is Best Buddies helps children and adults with intellectual disabilities. Now, it meets them from the schools through the jobs, and Josh will be sharing more about that. So as opposed to giving you like Josh's background, he's been in the nonprofit world for about 6 years. He'll tell you he kind of stumbled onto it, but I always believe there is a little bit more that the universe delivers there. But Josh and I stumbled into each other. When I am part of a networking group in New York City, and I facilitate a table at our evening meetings, and I'm on the board in the morning meetings. So at my table, I'm introduced to Josh Kaye, and he goes, yes, I do things in the nonprofit world. And he's being kind of vague. And I'm like, so what do you do? And I'm still not getting what I want and what I'm looking for. So I said, we need to talk. At the end of the event, I looked over and it's like, okay, what do you do and who do you do it for? He goes, well, I've been part of Best Buddies for about 6 years, and this is what I do. And I said, you're part of Best Buddies? Do you know my friend? And I'll just leave her name as Marilyn. And he goes, you are friends with Marilyn? We go on to take a selfie, text it to Marilyn, and we have had the joy of getting to know Josh through the Best Buddies community at the fundraisers, the walks, and the difference that he makes. So thank you, Josh, and thanks for joining me here today.
Thanks for having me. I always love going down memory lane on our first interaction, small world, first time meeting.
and it truly goes to show that the world is small, because our mutual friend and your board member goes coast to coast, and her background in Best Buddies goes back a long time. Share with us how you got involved in this organization and why this organization. What's that about?
Yeah, so I think as you noted, I did kind of stumble into it, but I think, I truly think it's one of the best random acts that ever happened to me. So a little kind of background, my undergraduate degree is in education. So, I've always had a passion for teaching and educating, and interacting with people. So I grew up, in New York, and was looking to move out to Chicago because I went to school in the Midwest and always, enjoyed big cities and wanted something new post-graduation. So while looking out there with an undergraduate degree in education, I was looking at teaching jobs, and I had a friend who actually saw a posting for Best Buddies. They had a position open at the time for running their adult friendship program out in Chicago, in the Chicagoland area. Sent it along my way. And it was, again, kind of dumb luck. I did some research on Best Buddies, really fell in love with the mission, took it to heart, did some digging on my own. Both my parents, worked and spent, if not all, a portion of their career in the nonprofit sector. So talked to them. They had heard good things, found out that my high school that I attended actually had a Best Buddies chapter open after I had left, and I had a younger sister and her best friend, who I also know quite well, turned out to be the chapter president, when she was still in high school. So, really heard nothing but wonderful things, applied kind of on a whim, interviews went well, and 6 years later, and a lot of growth in between, here I still am. So when I first started out in Chicago, I ran our adult friendship program. And I think, one of the funny things that I always look back on is my background was education, but really focused on youth. So adults was something I didn't think I had a true passion to. And I, again, really fell in love with the program in itself and, our core mission at heart.
So Josh, share a little bit about the core mission, because
Yeah,
I think that's an important piece, because that's, it was the first job, but it seems to have kept you here, especially as I've gotten to know you, is the core mission of Best Buddies.
Yeah. So our core mission is, Best Buddies International. We're a nonprofit dedicated to establishing a global volunteer movement that creates opportunities for one-to-one friendships, integrated employment, and leadership development for people with intellectual and developmental disabilities. And really what I love about our mission is it's really these simple concepts that most of us take for granted and don't really think about. If you take a step back and reflect on what would, think of your best friend or some people in your social network, and what would life be like without that? And it's something, unfortunately, that a lot of people either don't have those opportunities or might not, make social connections as equally. So, I think at our core, we're selling, so to speak, almost, and really something so simple, case in point, even employment, looking at, the joy, and I'll speak for me personally, the joy that I get to going to work every day and working and meeting the people that I do, and being part of this greater community, to help change the world. So at our core, it's these simple things that I think a lot of people at times take for granted, but is so important and really makes and shapes who a lot of us are as individuals.
So like businesses grow and expand, right? Because we can't stay stagnant in an ever evolving world. Best Buddies, share with us a little bit as from what you've seen, and you've been there 6 years, which in essence is a lot of time, but not a lot of time. The organization is how old? Give us a little bit of that background and then we'll jump in the other way.
Yeah, so Best Buddies was first founded in 1989 by Anthony Kennedy Shriver, who's the son of Eunice Kennedy Shriver, who founded Special Olympics. So Anthony, started this program. It'll be 30 years ago in a month. So celebrating a big birthday.
Big anniversary. We can send cards.
Exactly. But it started in his college years at Georgetown University as one chapter. So he saw, his inspiration is his aunt Rosemary. So he saw people, in the Georgetown community with intellectual and developmental disabilities that didn't have these social outlets. Similar to his aunt, Rosemary. So really he wanted to bring that simple concept of friendship, and it started at one chapter, to date, I should know how many schools we have, but I think we're over 100,000 schools, school friendship chapters
wow.
across the globe. And I know on an annual basis, we're impacting over 1 million people at this point. So, again, as you said, we started with one. Now to have well over 1,000 chapters across the globe, it really starts that change. For us, I would say from the friendship side, our initial start from the growth, it started with college programs, and then since then we started to grow organically into high schools and middle schools. Most recently, here in our New York State office, we've expanded into an elementary school program. So really starting to change those mindsets, and make that systemic change at a young age that way.
What drove it to, so you started in colleges, then went down to high schools and middle schools. What drove the development of the importance of elementary schools? Why that is the next step?
Yeah, I think for us, we saw that as the next step because I would say for twofold. One is I would say, and I'll reflect on my own, I would say, elementary experience, third, fourth, fifth grade, that's when more of the segregation starts, unfortunately, in terms of, students maybe being, as opposed to in inclusive classes, going into special education all day. So, that's when some of those stigmas, unfortunately, start, to change, for youth. So for us, we saw it as if we can start at the earliest age, and show that people bring, different abilities, but all sorts of special abilities, to the table, and really start to normalize, friendships and change the mindset from a young age. It's something that people can grow up with. So we're not going into a high school to change, people's mindsets when they're, 14, 15, 16, they've already grown up in this inclusive environment and seeing, the value that people, with and without disabilities bring to the table, and the uniqueness, uniquenesses that we all bring. And it's what makes us, special in our own ways.
In looking at the business side, so you started in Chicago, now you're the executive director of New York State. What do you see in the similarities and differences in a nonprofit and a business mission?
Yeah, there's definitely more similarities than people probably tend to think of. For us, I would say for a for-profit company, they have their revenue goals that they need to achieve. From a nonprofit standpoint, it's the same thing. We have our revenue goals, and ideally, continue to raise more funds, so that way, that's what feeds the mission. That's what allows us to do the work that we do, whether it's staff, whether it's putting on our program events. For example, we had an amazing event, social event here in New York City just last night. For our adult friendship participants and our employer partners and our jobs participants in the community. And it's a nice way for us to help promote those, social organic networking. We had an awesome karaoke event, and then, we had over 100 people attend. Yeah, no, it was, it was a lot of fun. It's I think not slowly becoming a new annual event for us, a little tradition, because people really love it. And a lot of people in our programs, have naturally and organically found, new connections through that. But also, from the business side, I would say for us, another similarity is, and I'll tie this to our jobs program specifically, is, for our jobs program, we're helping find competitive, integrated, support and employment for individuals with intellectual developmental disabilities in the community. But for us, one thing that we always one of our sales pitch, so to speak, is, by our employer partners that are joining, this movement. It's not just, and really trying to shift the mindset of it's not that you're doing this because it's a good deed. It's a smart business decision. Our participants.
So share more about that. So how do you see the employment, and why are companies getting behind this? What is this looking like, and why are they doing it?
Yeah, I would say a few reasons. One, from looking at kind of a number standpoint, if you look at the national unemployment rate now, right now it's somewhere, give or take, I believe, hovering around 4%. Whereas if you look at the national, employment rate of people with intellectual developmental disabilities, it's around 81%. And that's really, it's not for lack of, ability, it's really lack of opportunity. So for us, when we're meeting with new employers, and what we've seen a lot of our employer partners really take, using their quantified data, because I think the world is becoming much more analytical in that sense. A lot of our participants that have been placed, in positions that maybe are traditionally, higher turnover, our participants have a much higher retention rate, than someone that isn't employed, through the Best Buddies program. And for the business side of it, from a dollars perspective, they're not only saving time in terms of like HR and recruiting and onboarding. I think I could be slightly off on this, but I think they say, when you lose an employee, you're almost losing 3 months of not only salary, but production as well. I think like for the nonprofit sector specifically, and then, from a development position, I think if you're losing, a top performer, I think that is, you're almost losing either somewhere between 12 and 18 months worth of production, which is kind of crazy to think about. So looking at it from any, from a business perspective, it's good business. You're hiring qualified, people that really are passionate and want to work. One thing we've seen outside from the dollars perspective is for a lot of our employer partners, we've gotten feedback that it's helped change their office culture, and it's
in what way? Share a little bit more about that, because I think that's an unexpected benefit.
Yeah.
And
I would say, for us, no, it's definitely an important one. I think, you're what's the saying? Your work friends really become your best friends.
Right.
And most of your time with. So making sure that you not only love your job and love the work that you're doing, but enjoy the people that you're doing it with. And I think some of the feedback that we've got, not only here in New York, but I think from Best Buddies jobs across the country, is, a lot of our participants, they come in energized, they're excited, they have a desire, a strong desire to work, and they're just good, happy, fun people, so, and that's something that really, it can shift, a culture, and not to say that it shifts every culture, because sometimes people might be going into, an already inclusive environment and a great work environment, but then it's just that much, it's another good fit, someone that fits that culture.
So, it's so true. When we're surrounded by happy people, we take on that essence. And if you have in your office people who are happy, it makes it complete logical sense to actually have that as a large impact on the culture of the organization.
Mm-hmm.
So tell me, what are some of Josh's greatest successes in this journey of yours?
Oh man, my greatest success. My greatest success. This might be kind of a little bit of a cop-out, unfortunately, but I view every day for me personally as a success. I think I really feel fortunate to be not only where I am, in life, but professionally speaking. I come to work every day. I work with a great group of people. I will say is some of the most amazing volunteers, on support basis, both internally within Best Buddies, and then our volunteers, which I really view as an extension of our staff and our team. But I come in and just help to, I think, make the world a better place, which makes me happy. I think from having started in Chicago, one of the aspects that I loved about my job, which I still love today, is my job is to network and meet people and connect people and make introductions and change people's lives. So whether it's, making a new friendship match and, helping start ideally, which 9 times out of 10, I would say becomes a lifelong friendship. And I would say, for me personally, I personally got involved in our program with my buddy Jake, and we still, well, I'm not in Chicago, so we don't see each other as often in person. We still talk, every few weeks, and he will be part of my life forever, but again, it's not only.
So you don't just work at Best Buddies, you've actually taken on a buddy in a relationship on your own in your personal time, to actually see what the experience is about and really become kind of the inside and outside part of this organization.
Yeah. And again, Jake has changed my life for the better in so many ways. I've gotten to meet a lot of his friends. He's gotten to meet a lot of my friends. There was actually a funny story where, one of my best friends from college and roommates when I lived in Chicago, works at Morgan Stanley. And I get a text from him, one day in the middle of work saying, "You'll never guess who I just saw." Jake was, doing something with his group home where he lives in Chicago. And they were at Morgan Stanley, and he saw Brian and ran over. They were chatting for minutes, and again, I had, this was 2 years removed from me being in Chicago, and again, I think it all comes full circle. It's not just that one-to-one friendship, but it's really impacting each other's lives outside. Jake became friends with a lot of my friends, from college in Chicago, and I became friends with a lot of his, his networking family as well.
And, in looking at this, I'm a strong proponent of always embracing the relationships in business in our lives and what that builds. Has there been any significant relationships in your career, in your journey in success and development that you could say, this is a relationship that really has made an impact and where it has gone?
Oh man, I got to pinpoint one.
Okay, you can give me 2.
I think I've oh man. My brain is just going back again to I think most of our board and just our community basis. Everyone that I have had the fortune of meeting and working with, I think one of the when your core mission is, friendships, and employment, the beauty is you tend to draw and attract, just genuinely good people, so, I might be meeting with a CEO or executive, and at the end of the day, it's just like talking to anyone else. They're genuinely great, wonderful people that are, wanting to help make the world a better place. So I view a lot of our, volunteers and board members, and even Maryland, for example, as people that I kind of look up to. So it's nice to have, for me at least, a community of people that I just aspire to, not only make them proud, but be like.
Any surprises in this journey?
Any surprises in this journey? For me personally, when I moved back to New York about 2 years ago, to be, I was the area director for New York City at that time. And I reported to our, state executive director of the state. Shortly after I came back, that individual ended up leaving the organization. So, I kind of was thrown into a position that I wasn't necessarily expecting. It was really exciting, and I was thrilled about the opportunity. But in 3 months' time, when you transfer, sign up for one role and then are kind of thrown into this different world, that can definitely be overwhelming. I would imagine at points. But for me, I don't know if this is a true surprise, but I guess it was a good surprise to see that, I had, our team internally at Best Buddies, as well as our board and our volunteers, the community, really kind of rally, with me, to make sure that nothing faltered and that we still, were on the path to success and continued growth. And that year we actually had our best year to date, so financially we had raised the most money to date. Our programs grew. We opened 15 new school chapters that year. We doubled our adult friendship program, buddy pairs in New York City, and then doubled our jobs placements in that year.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Congratulations. That's huge.
Thank you. So that was.
And like a business, looking at the numbers and the metrics to continue to scale and grow. And for Best Buddies and many other nonprofits, it's the bigger the impact and bigger the effect that Best Buddies and various other organizations do for so many people, families, and it's that trickle down effect.
Yeah, it truly is. Again, if you're making one buddy pair, if you're helping one person find employment, you're not just impacting that one person, you're impacting the entire business, you're impacting that person's entire family. So it's, I think, unbelievable, and I find every day in work to be extremely rewarding, which I feel fortunate and blessed to be able to say. I don't know that everyone can say that.
That is very true. So any tips or advice on people, for our listeners today, on anything about Best Buddies, anything about being involved in nonprofits, any, starting things, any tips, advice, words of wisdom from Josh? just put a little pressure on you here.
Yeah. I would say, first and foremost is to try new things. I encourage everyone, whether it's Best Buddies or something else, get involved. It's a great feeling to give back, but it's something that is needed. And it's a way for, I think, individuals to not only find their passions, but meet other like-minded individuals as well. One thing that we've seen we try to do, a social event every other month, for our adult community-based program. And what we've seen is a lot of natural friendships, between people that would have otherwise probably never met. A lot of our participants at one of our group outings, they'll meet another buddy pair. And then, when we're checking in, we'll hear, oh yeah, the four of us, really hit it off at karaoke. So we, the following month, the four of us went out to dinner. And
nice.
Yeah, so it's, and it's find your passion, whether it's Best Buddies, whether it's working with animals, whether it's working with, homeless or vets or whatever it may be, and try new things. I work for Best Buddies. I also volunteer with Best Buddies, but I've also, over the years been involved in other organizations and things that I feel passionate about. And, they bring me just as much joy. So yeah, I would say definitely get involved in one way or the other.
So yeah, and that's what I'm hearing you say. Give it a try, get involved, show up, test the waters, try a few different things, but show up and do something.
Yeah.
It doesn't take much. And I will say, having been to the various different Best Buddies walks here in New York City and some of the fundraisers over the years, and, learning more and more about the organization, it's a beautiful thing that touches people of all ages and really makes an impact on them, the volunteers, and the residual effect of every person in both worlds. So I love that about Best Buddies. Well, Josh, thank you. Thank you, Ivy. I know you're busy. I know you've been popping all over the state, in New York, in Albany. You expanded to Rochester or something, some area, if I recall, recently.
Yeah, so we were in Rochester, our office there, and going into Western New York. So trying to expand further into Buffalo and Long Island, New York City, and Albany. Next stop is Westchester.
There we go. And for our listeners, Best Buddies is, if I recall, and Josh, please just make sure I have my facts right, is a global organization, correct?
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. So we're in all 50 states and then 54 countries.
Beautiful. So it's not that hard to show up in the world and dip your feet in the waters. Josh, Kaye, thank you so much for joining me today on Her Success Story. Listeners, if you like what you hear, leave a comment for us, for Josh. Check out the Best Buddies website. Everything is in the show notes, all the links, everything you need to know. You like what we have to say, subscribe. It will be we drop every Monday morning. Great more content, a few more great nonprofits coming up during the holiday seasons. Let us know what interests you, and we're here to meet you in that corner. Happy holidays, everyone. And remember, the holidays is about giving and receiving. Find something, even a little thing, to do for somebody else. Thanks, guys.